Hello everybody, Travis here, and we're going to try out Faerie pranks. And we're going to go ahead and view the deck first instead of going to a battle, because this is one of the pre-made decks. And it's Faerie Tribal, and we have a kind of Faerie boss, Obira Dreaming Duelist from Eldraine. 2/2 flying, you can bring it in with a flash. Whenever another Faerie enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. And there's a lot of Faeries in here. Hold your jokes. Let's see, 17 fairies. Okay, so 25 lands. Lots of instants and sorceries too. 17 instants and sorceries and only 1 golem for an artifact. Here's what we got. Sleep Cursed Faerie. Bring it down for 1. It comes in tapped, 3 stun counters on it. It's got Flying and Ward 2. You can spend 2 if you want to untap it, so that will just get rid of a stun counter. 3 Sleight of Hands to dig through your deck. 1 goes into the top of your hand and 1 goes to the bottom of your library. Snaremaster Sprites. If you have an extra 2, you can pay it and tap a creature an opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Some people just pay 1 if they have it and just put down the 1/1 and skip it. But you do want to try and hold out for this if you can. It's sort of like a kicker cost. 3 Steps Ahead. Just 1 of those. You can usually use it to counter a target spell. If you got extra, then you can create a token. Or draw 2 cards and discard a card. 1 Faerie Dream Thief. When it enters the battlefield, you get to surveil once. You can exile it from your graveyard to draw a card and lose a life. Not bad value for a 1/1. Faerie Fencing. This is a couple of the removal spells, right? Target gets -X/-X until end of turn. An additional -3/-3 if you control a fairy as you cast the spell. So if you've got 3 mana out, you could do a -2/-2 just to start with. But if a fairy's out, it turns into a -5/-5. And every additional you pour into the X, the greater the creature you can take out. If you're doing Fancy Tribal, not a bad removal card. 2 Deduces to draw a card plus Investigate. 2 Freeze in Place to do stun counters and Scry 2. 2 Picklock Pranksters. You can mill 4 cards. This is out of your own side of the library. Put an instant sorcery or fairy card from among the milled cards into your hand. So this goes into your exile stack anyway that you can bring down as a 1/3 flying Vigilance Fairy Rogue, separate from the 4 cards that you're looking at for the instant sorceries or fairies. Very good spell for, I'm stuttering as I say the name, Spell Stutter. It only costs 2. You counter target spell unless the controller plays 2. Additional 1 for each fairy you control. Just like the Faerie Fencing, very good fairy synergy deck. So as long as you're playing with the synergies, with the fairies, yeah, very nice, impressive card to go with this deck. Baronati, a 1/3 flyer, has lifelink as long as you control another fairy. You can pump it for 3, give it an extra power for every 3 you can spare. 1 Drag the Canal, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. I feel like I want to build around this card. Everybody that's used it so far, I'd say 90% have only done the first part. They just use it to create a 2/2. But if a creature died this turn, you also gain 2 life, surveil 2, and investigate. A lot of value. Almost nobody ever uses it that way. We would try to use it that way. Mocking Sprite is fun, costs 3, it's a 2/1 flyer. Instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast, so easier to cast the counter spell, easier to cast the Faerie Fencing, and so forth. Easier to cast the Quick Study. For 3 you draw 2 cards. We've got 3 of those, so we're looking to dig through our deck fast. Talion's Messenger, Faerie Noble. Whenever you attack with 1 or more fairies, draw a card, then discard a card. So sort of like Connive, but they didn't keyword it with Connive. Too close to Streets and Nuka Pen, I suppose. When you discard a card this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target fairy you control. So instead, it's not Connive because it doesn't work just on this 1 fairy. It can work on other fairies as well. So that's why they didn't use the Connive. That's why they didn't use the keyword. Another adventure card from Eldraine, Spellscorn Coven. To take it back, you can pay 3, return target spell to its owner's hand. And this is kind of fun because they're doing adventure cards and they're doing off colors, so you've got 1 color for the creature and a different color for the spell. You can then bring it down as a flyer, 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. One of the cards I like a lot, Talion the Kindly Lord, Legendary Faerie Noble, 3/4 with flying. As it enters the battlefield, choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, toughness equal to that chosen number, that player loses 2 life, and you draw a card. I wonder How many people choose 10 as their number when they bring that down? That would be kind of fun. One roaming throne, ward 2 for 4. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. We, of course, would choose Faerie. Make the roaming throne of Faerie Golem. And then if a triggered ability of another trigger you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. Say that 3 times fast. So if you bring down Spellscorned Coven, the opponent's going to discard 2 cards because that's going to activate twice. If you bring a Faerie in with Dreaming Duelist out, you're going to have each opponent lose 1 life twice. That kind of thing. And finally, Faerie Slumber Party, a sorcery, return all creatures to their owner's hands. For each opponent who controlled a creature returned this way, you create 2 1/1 blue Faerie creature tokens with flying, and they can only block creatures with flying. So I'm not. Well, I guess if you're, yeah, that could be worth it. That could be worth it. Okay, my brain is turning. We got 4 of the Soured Springs to deal damage, and we got 1 Undercity Sewers to surveil 1. That's the deck. It's a Wizard's Premade deck. Sometimes it's going to win just because people don't defend against flying as much as they should. But it can fail to the go wide because most of the other go wide decks have much better toughness creatures, so they can attack without worrying about the fairies knocking them out. Okay, lots of sifting at the very beginning here. And we're just going to wait. We're going to hold this till they put down a creature. Deal the damage, that's fine. Pass the turn. I don't need to use the Slate of Hands to dig for land as long as we're getting land. I do need 5 or 6 lands to make the deck work. So as long as we're drawing lands, I don't need to dish the lands away. Did they get rid of their counterspell already? They did. They're digging. I just hope this isn't another boring Atraxa deck. Alright, let's bring down the Sleep Cursed Faerie. Not too alarming, right? Did they miss a land drop? They're going kind of slow. If they're going that slow, we're just going to draw 2 cards then. Refill our hand. Ho ho! It's a control deck, and they didn't want us to do that. Okay. Okay, fine. What about a Mocking Sprite? And what about a Picklock Prankster that only costs 1? And we will take Fairy Fencing. Yeah. We may be dealing with a creatureless deck. If we are, then Faerie Slumber Party is going to be kind of worthless. But for a change, we actually have more land than the control deck. That hardly ever happens. Vigilance, huh? Oh, they get to go search for our planes. Maybe they've just been holding on to their planes. Why did they go get 2 different lands that both allow them to surveil at the same time? Were they planning to discard a spell? I wouldn't normally do that. Oh, they're surveilling yet again. That's a lot of surveil lands. So they've been hoarding their land. It's not that I did well on land. That was all part of their plan. Okay, what do we want to do against this guy? I think we want to get rid of this. That was easy. And then we activate this to untap that. And then we can bring this down. And then we can attack for 5. And if they've got a farewell, we're in trouble. Or a Sunfall. It's a control deck. Of course they have exactly what they need as soon as they've got enough land. Cute. Thank you, Arena, for just making me flood out. Let's try that again. Yeah, okay, we're just bringing this out. Did we... I guess it's okay that I went ahead and didn't put that out earlier because it would have been gone from the farewell, so we've actually at least got something. But it can't even stop the 3/3. All of that sorting, all of that draw spells, and we had 10 lands. And we already have 2 that are in the graveyard from the milling. I think that's exactly 50% lands to card draw. And they have 4 cards in their hand and we've got... Sorry, they have 6 cards in their hand and we have nothing, essentially. That won't do any good there. Okay, so we bring this out. We'll go ahead and pay the 2 to tap the creature. And then I think we hold on to this. Or... yeah. Let's just see if holding it for this take it back feature does any good at all. Shattered Pact. They're just going to get more land. Shrouded Shepherd. And they just cast it again. And they can afford to hold on to it or still cast it because they have so much land already. Okay. We make them discard 1 spell. We can afford to pay for a counter spell if they're holding a counter spell. They had a backup Shrouded Shepherd. Let's see. They probably have another No More Lies. Are you serious? This is all you're giving me. That's a lot of land up front, Arena. That's almost half my lands. I'm still not even... I'm just barely a third of the way through the deck. Oh, they can cast that right away. I'm functionally useless right now. They've got every piece of their combo essentially already there. Okay. Okay, I see how this is. Thank you, Arena. This is... I was thinking about not... I was thinking about taking stuff out where I flood out or where... oh, let me discard a land, please. Things where I flood out or things where I get land starved. I was thinking of learning how to edit those out, but I really feel this is instructive to see how Arena treats me. This is par for the course. Even after all these years, they haven't changed the algorithm on me. Or are they saying oops? Like somebody made a mistake. It's not that you're particularly skillful. I've actually lost track of how many lands in a row that is, if that was 3 or 4. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we had 14 lands and 12 spells. And that was including a draw spell and a couple of other slate of hand spells that just helped me sort through the deck. And even after drawing and sorting, I still had 14 lands and 12 spells. And you can see the difference because we got 1, 2, 3... Well, not counting the one they brought back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spells right there. Yeah. We're going to leave that in there. I'm not going to start over. We're just going to keep going. I guess that's not necessarily an endemic flaw of the deck, right? Because theoretically, you can flat out with any deck. I mean, any deck is going to give you 14 land cards that early. But let's see how often it happens, right? Let's see if there's some unnatural occurrence with a lot of extra lands in this particular deck. Let's also see... I have the counterspell ready, so we're just going to keep it ready. Black's almost always got something cheap they're willing to put down. Yeah. We'll counter that. Make our other spells cheaper. See if they bother to use removal on these or not. The good thing about the Faerie deck, if you're using a bunch of Faerie creatures, is they're all fairly cheap. And most of them are fairly fragile, so if Black's going to use a full removal spell on it, you don't usually feel too bad. But I would actually like the discounts. So I do happen to like the effect that the Mocking Sprite has. Okay, let's go... Let's bring this in. We're just going to hold on to the land. We actually don't need more than 3 right now. If they have another discard spell, we'll just throw the extra island away. Opponent does not miss a land drop. If I didn't mention it, for anybody who knew who's come into the neighborhood, this is Travis here at Tpull's Corner. Let's see, Gixian Infiltrator, when you sacrifice another permanent. I like having that. Yeah, let's just draw it now. That's fine. We won't attack. They could sacrifice that, right? Maybe, if they have the right spell. And turn that into a 3/2. Or they could sacrifice their land whenever they want. Discard 2 cards. So it's a discard deck, I take it. Could have just cast that for 0, really. But now we have lifelink. Woohoo! So we're good if they bring out a Shieldred or something like that. Or a Kervik the Punisher. Is there anything good they can bring out for just 2? They could do another Shieldred's Kiss if they wanted to, alright? We wait for them to figure that out. They don't want to cast a spell. Interesting. And I don't see a reason why we would need to hold on to that anymore. Is that oops on their part or oops on my part? Our opponent is not missing a land drop. Liliana could make things difficult for us here. Any one of the 5 or 6 drop creatures could make life really difficult for us. It's a very fragile deck. Fairies are by their nature fragile. But you see, even with the draw card spells that I have, it's such a cheap deck. Which one are they doing? They spent 5? So they're doing all of it? So they can get the card they want now and draw the 3. They've already got just as much draw card advantage as I have through the entire game. But they still got stuff to do. Okay, so I lose 2 life, but I didn't have any cards left to hold on to. So if it really is mostly a discard deck, it's going to make this pretty easy. Here we activate this, get rid of a stun counter. We have enough to activate it again, get rid of another stun counter. And we keep on attacking them. And if most of what's left is still just discard spells, we're fine. They need removal too. So far, just the Sheoldred's Edict. Usually black has more than that. If they didn't skimp on the removal cards, they should be able to kill 1 or 2 things. Hey, look at that! One of the cards that can mess us up. Luckily, we can fly with everybody, so maybe we have a chance. Let's see. As long as we don't just keep drawing lands. They just got rid of our most expensive spell, so we don't need 6 anymore for anything. Okay, so we'll pay to go ahead and tap Sheoldred so we don't have to worry about the attackers. Plus our opponent loses 1 life there. So we just have to worry about the life gain that they have. And I messed up because I was supposed to spend my remaining 2 to untap that, so that could cost me the game if I made the mistake there. What else did they get? They can sacrifice lands and just keep drawing cards and gaining more life. They can also discard and draw a card this way and gain more life. They can basically gain like 10 points in the next couple of turns if all they do is use their blood tokens and use their draw lands. Yeah, it looks like they have really good synergies too with this deck. They got out their wonderful combination exactly at the right time. Gixing Puppeteer plus Sheoldred makes for awesome draw cards. They're taking a real long time to figure this out, though. But notice they not only did they make all their land drops, but they had extra land to discard. Perfect for them. Is there anything that's going to come? No, we're just going to draw lands that I don't need. Thank you, Arena. Come on, you had your turn. Let me have my turn. All they can do really is, unless they have a 1 mana removal, they can just use this. Oh, save me from people that are winning that decide they have to rope us. I can pump this up. I don't think I need full control for this, right? But I hope they just cast another creature. We have a chance then. Okay, we're going to give them time. While we give them time, we invite you to like and subscribe. It's such riveting entertainment. Like the first one, just flooding out with just tons and tons of land. The next one, a player with Sheldred and Gixing Puppeteer out. And 3 different ways that he can draw that we know of just right now. And they had to think about that. Gee whiz. Yeah, they had... They managed to draw 2 removal spells in their last couple of draws. Exactly what they needed. And all we did was draw the 1 land. So, yet again, you can kind of see what we're up against. Can we do 6? No. Okay. Thank you, Arena. So this deck does have the issue of flooding out at the worst times. Even if I'd managed to get that other 3 points in, it still would not have been enough. But I did make that one mistake. So Wizards has made 10 of these pre-made decks. We're going to go through every single one of them. And this year, it is a bit of a slog. This is the 2024, just before rotation. So 4 decks that we're losing, right? We're losing both of the Innistrad. We're losing Streets of New Capenna. We're losing Kamigawa Nia Dynasty. Some good cards we're going to be saying goodbye to. So the new Premades aren't going to consist of anything from those 4. But they're also not going to have anything of the upcoming Bloom Barrel. Is there any reason why... I mean, that's an instant, so... I could spend the 2 just to get rid of a stun counter earlier. They don't seem to be in a rush to do anything more, right? Let's just do this. We missed a land drop after flooding out for 2 games in a row, so maybe maybe Arena's making up for the flooding because they're just gonna get rid of us. Oh, never mind. We lost 2 in a row, so there we go. I'm not sure that if I were doing a normal deck that I constructed, I'm not sure if I would keep this video, but since it's a pre-made deck, it's very instructive that Arena still treats me the same garbage way that it treats me when I make my own decks, right? It's like they know it's my username. It doesn't matter which deck I'm using. They're just going to flood me out. They're going to starve me. And every now and then they'll have some nonsense quit just to get me close to the 50% win-loss ratio. All right, Mackie. Let's at least draw enough lands to stay in the fight, shall we? Okay, so they already got more in my opening hand than I got all of last match. Spell Stutter. I do like to see this early, because my opponent's usually doing stuff like that to me anyway. So they can pay 3-4 total already. We will stop the ramping, because that also gives them a clue token. So I'm not sure if I'd be able to make that good later, so we might as well make it good now. Let's see, what do we want to do next? Yeah, let's just see what else is out there. Opponent did not miss a land drop. They get double power and toughness. What number do we want to pick with Talion? We're not going to pick 10. Okay. Let's go ahead and choose 5. Actually, 4 is my favorite number. So we're going to do 4. And if they do 5 or 6, I'll be in trouble. Right? Look at that! They did 6. No blocks. Come on through. Sure. Let's get rid of that. We only need to do the 2. They get all these treasure tokens. What else is coming my way? I do need more land, don't I? I guess... Nah, let's take the Spell Stutter. I can block the Merge Keeper, but if they have a second one of these right away, we're in trouble. Opponent does not miss a land drop, even though I canceled their ramping. Glorious Sunrise. And, okay, so they've used up everything in their hand. Well, we were tapped out. They've got 6 lands already. We got 4. All they can do is gain life, which is fine for now. Yeah, we got Slumber Party, right? That just returns the creatures, but we'll take the land. And we don't do anything else. That's a 2. What can we do here? It's fine. Wait, how did they double-double? Oh, they used the Glorious Sunrise double-double. How do we want to do this? No, because it's a legendary creature. Shoot. Are you serious? We're not gonna block that. I think we're dead. Yeah, there's nothing I can do there. 23-1. Even with the Spell Stutter, they drew every single piece of land they needed, got everything they needed to set up their combo. I'm so used to people gaining 3 life or drawing a card, I forgot they can just add trample and add stuff. It's been how long since I saw somebody use Glorious Sunrise? Okay, land, we'll take it. I want to be able to cast as much of 3 steps ahead as I can. Okay, drag the canal. We're going to make good on this one, right, folks? We can do it. Additional land, and of course the opponent has it. Bristly Bill, I don't have removal. Whenever I play this card, everybody has instant removal. I'm playing a deck that does not, and of course they're ready with the land to play. The opponent does not miss a land drop. We'll just do that to them. Do they have a protection spell? Yes, they do. What else do we have going on here? Yeah, we'll take that. I was supposed to attack, wasn't I? I'm making little mistakes here and there tonight. I'm clicking the fast forward button just a half second too early. Now, if they have a damage spell, we're really in trouble. No, just a massive creature. Okay, we will pay for this. They'll lose 1 big old life point. We auto pay, but you notice that we're they've already got somebody who's 6'5" that can defend against flyers with reach. So there's nothing that we have that can get past this out of our entire Faerie deck. Make that 2 creatures. There's nothing that we can do to get past that. Thank you, Arena, for flooding us out with land yet again. I feel like 25 lands is too much for this cheap Faerie deck. Okay. Create a token, draw 2 cards. We'll create a token of this. We'll auto pay. Draw 2 cards. We get rid of the extra land that we don't need still. They lose 1 life. We block with the token there. 5/9 to stop lethal. We block there. And we lost our creatures, but we weren't able to make good on that. Woohoo! We're stalling. We're doing what we can. And our situation is just getting worse. We've just used the most powerful spell, the most expensive spell we have in the entire deck. And there's nothing that can help this. This is very interesting. I'm going to pass. You notice that both of the creatures they put down have reach, so we put out a flying deck, and Arena just went out and found the most... This is actually a Premade deck. No, it's not Premade because it didn't have Shore Up in it. But I've been seeing a lot of both Railway Brawler and Cactarantula a lot. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, nothing matters. There's just... This is the only spell that costs 6. Everything else is 5 or less. There's nothing else that we could do. I mean, if we had the removal spell... Let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Still, we would not have enough land out to get this down to 0. This combination already took care of that. Haha! Oh, we're dead anyway. I can't block with those things. It didn't matter. None of that mattered. Trying to make good on that one spell didn't matter. I have to say, they had reach creatures whenever they wanted. For a cheap spell that's supposed to draw through the deck fast, this does really poorly against Green's ability to ramp and get big creatures out. We'll try it one last time. Remember, we're looking for the fun. Wizards, they have a lot of people working on it. They have entire teams that they put together to work on Magic the Gathering. So, not just to create the cards, right? They have a team to figure out the rules and how they work, both for the board and for digital. They have people to figure out the framing. They have people to figure out the templating of the card. They have editors. They have the design team itself. There are a ton of teams. There's a team that designed these 10 Premade decks. So the company literally has, I don't know how many hundreds of employees now, all designed to make a good game that's fun for you to play. And this is what they came up with. I have lost to a deck like this before. I have seen people put together Faerie Tribal already, especially when Eldraine first came out. It's not very prevalent right now in the environment. But decks like that may be a little bit better against people like me who are not concerned about the meta environment or ranking up to Mythic, but just trying to create out of all the rest of the cards that they have. And blue on turn 2 is already roping us. Alright, I feel like this is going to be a land-heavy deck again. Nice. All I did was cast a spell. That's not really particularly nice. We may be up against a troll. I don't think they're genuinely impressed with Quick Study, are they? We've got 6 lands. We've got enough to cast Faerie Slumber Party. They have a choice of 2 creatures. They should get rid of Talion's Messenger. They don't. Why would you get rid of Picklock Prankster out of everything? Seriously, Arena? Alright, they know from our hand this is all we've got left to play. And we're done. We now basically have a dead hand. We got land for days, so does our opponent, but they also have cards. Do I use that on that? It's just going to let them draw cards. The creature died. We're going to make good on this. Woohoo! Sure, why not? Yeah, we seem to have been able to do a lot with just 6 lands. Somebody's trying to make good on hostile. Another lightning strike. That's just enough to take out the toughness 3. Thank you, Arena, for the land. What would we do without you? More land. There's just no reason for us to hold anything back or save any mana. They could have a board wipe, but nobody cares. They had 4 lands? So Arena's flooding them out too, but it gave them a way out of it. Get another land. It looks like their night is going just the way mine is. They still, after 5 lands, they ditched. They still had a way to do all that. We can't get past that now, right? So let's do this. Everybody goes back up. You come down. This will let us ping them for a couple of life points as we bring the other fairies in. This is a strange deck. They're using a bunch of older cards. Okay, the sprite comes down first. Makes everything cheaper. We'll go ahead and use this. Mill 2 lands, and yeah, we'll take the creature, because this gives another life point. And another life point. We attack with everybody. And unless they do have a board wipe, they can't stop all of this. That seems like desperation. They could take out a Byra. Or lose 3 life and gain 3 life. I think that was the wrong choice. But that's just me. Maybe we'll just float out with land for the next couple turns. Ooh, that's pretty. Faerie! Double pink for life? Yes! Life is good. See? Told you that was a mistake. Let's see. We can untap this. Untap this again. And attack with what we got. 1 life point. We still had 1 spell we didn't use yet. You can kind of see the synergies once you get one of these down first, and then you can bring in the other fairies. And the land, there's always something to do with your land, with things like this where you have mana sinks. Yeah, making a sacrifice. One of those creatures
Nobody knows
not gonna work.
Dominaria's shadows like me.
That's probably one of the most effective demonstrations we're going to have of this deck. Expose the culprit. I got to build a deck around that sometime too. I always seem to run out of time to make my decks, but that's because I take a couple weeks out to go through these. Let's open up the Faerie Pranks again. I do like Obira. She fits in well. I do like the spell stutters, and I do like the fairy fencing. I like when they do the build around decks, and they have these kind of cards that are synergies that say, hey, we're going to suggest a creature type. We're going to give you some help so that if you do want to center around building fairies, you'll have support for it. I don't know why you would ever have this removal card when there are so many other removal cards out, unless you had fairies in the deck, and at a sufficient volume that it would make it worth it. So it is one of those cards where if you hate the fairy creature type, you will never in your life use this card. But if you don't mind trying out a fairy deck, it's a fun card, right? The additional value is nice, and the same for Spell Stutter as well. Roaming Throne is perfect for all the additional triggers that are in here, and of course I'm always a sucker for Talion, so I love Talion no matter what. And I think Mocking Sprite is going to be good in almost any deck that you'd want to put it in to make your instants and sorceries cost 1 less. So I like a lot of the individual cards, but there's a big top end limit to this, right? They only have 4 4-drops and 1 that cost more than 4, and the effect is not that much. So you're counting on counterspelling something essential a couple of times, and you only got 2 removal cards basically. And then everything else is basically we can bounce something once, and then you can just try and stun long enough to get it into play. I do like the Drag the Canal card, and I think it should be easy to make good on that in most cases. I'm not sure what 25 lands is probably too many for this deck. I mean, what's the average mana cost value? 2.3. It's such a cheap deck. But I think they had a default for all the pre-made decks that they make them all with 25 lands to make it equal. But really, if you're going to make a deck that costs an average of 2.3, ugh. Yeah, I think they should have gotten rid of one of those and given us an extra Spell Stutter and extra Fairy Fencing. So there's obviously a lot of things that you can do in here if you want to try and mix things up a little bit. The Sleight of Hands, I'm not sure that's really a good card for this particular deck. Really not sure. But I'm open for your comments as to what you think of this pre-made deck. I would be willing to try it out a little bit more often, maybe. But maybe not as it is. I would probably want to upgrade it myself first before I take this out for another spin. And I'm probably getting rid of Fairy Slumber Party and putting something else in its place that's just, 5 or 6 drop that is a little bit better than this. But, it's a fairy related thing. They're doing a fairy themed. It's fairy tribal. So, when else are you going to use Fairy Slumber Party? I don't know. But when we're trying to find the fun, Where are we at so far? Ancient Discovery had potential, but wasn't quite right. Crack the Case had some limits, although it has a good card. Desert Oasis is closer so far. I'd be willing to play that one again. And Dino Might was fun. Fairy Pranks, I'm not so sure that I want to do Fairy Pranks again. I did not like... I think there's a flaw in the way that they designed that. There's just way too many lands, and it's way too easy to flood out. I've built decks like this before in my early days that were this cheap, and that's just a problem, right? If we were going to make a mono red deck that was this cheap, we would cut some lands out without a doubt, and they're not doing that here. So that's a problem. If they want to go ahead and keep that many lands in there, they really needed to have not quite this kind of mana curve. This is just sloping down. It's just whoop, we're done. That's not good enough. It's not properly balanced. So we ask you for comments. We must never forget that we have a patron these days, so we thank our patron. Go ahead and let me know what you would do with this deck. If you've had better luck with it than me, if you're seeing something else in here that is more fun, and I'm somehow missing the fun in this deck, let me know. But we'll go through another Premade next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.